Thank you for attending this year's Veterans Day program here at Calumet Park. The sacrifice our veterans make are often far from our minds. I reflect on the service of my father, of both grandfathers, both great-grandfathers, often not sharing their experiences with me. I think of my dad's good friend, Bradley Barton, who served as the national commander for the disabled American veterans, who lost his legs in Vietnam, but that he didn't let that stop him from becoming an attorney and going on to continue to help veterans. I think about my grandfather's good friend Frank Herringody, whose grandson played basketball at Notre Dame. He lost his leg, and we would see him at Vogel's restaurant, and he would always make a quarter magically appear from our ears. I think about my dad's friend Rick Gregutis, who was told that he would never run again. And he not only ran marathons, but he played rugby with my dad all the time, and even to this day, pulling shrapnel from his leg. How should we respond to all this sacrifice? And I know Pat's going to do a much better job than I am, but these are just some things on my mind that I just felt I had to share. So my son attends Alabama, and they have a good football team, and so you kind of get sucked into some of the commentary of the coaches. And so Nick Saban was asked, you went all this time, how do you continue? How do you encourage others, and how do you continue the success? And he just said that you can never become complacent, and you have to always strive to be better. And I just look across the USA. And thank you for all you attending here tonight. And I'm not speaking for everybody, but as a whole, we're soft and we're complacent. We're complacent on thanking our vets. And I just got done with listening to a podcast with this lady, Mamie Park, and I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, but she escaped North Korea, and her story is just incredible. But it also is a warning of what if we lose sight of what the freedom that we have been given, if we lose sight of that and we give it away for all the lives and all the bloodshed that has been fought, it's incomprehensible to me. I think about the victories won that give me so much opportunity and freedom. I cannot be complacent. I must remind my family. I must encourage events like this that we can remember, and that this life is a fight that we cannot sit idly by doing nothing when our rights are on the brink of being canceled. I must demand to get the most of each and every day. I must demand that I hug my kids, that I read them bedtime stories when I'm really not feeling it, because I know that there's vets out there that don't get to do that anymore, that never get the chance to come home and hug their kids, to read them bedtime stories. I must thank God for the freedom that I have been given to be able to do some crazy stuff that I know I got friends in other countries that just dream about doing it. And I must not let fear take away from the freedom that I've been given. Let us pray. Lord, I thank you. Today I thank you for our veterans, for their willingness to risk all so that our nation might dwell in peace and safety. I pray that you will heal the physical, spiritual, and psychological wounds some of these veterans have suffered. Help our veterans to forgive those in our government that through bad policy and decisions caused harm to our soldiers, and those that helped aid our effort, knowing that by forgiving we help ourselves in the healing process. We ask you to protect our troops currently serving, strengthen them with your power. May their courage never falter, and minister to their spirits. May their cause be just. Give our military favor with governmental agencies. May our leaders have clear vision to seek wise counsel, curtail hostile actions before they start. May the response to any aggression by enemies of this nation be swift, accurate, and effective. Let them return to their loved ones unharmed. Should they be harmed, may their wounds heal. Should they perish in the struggle, please embrace them and find them a place in your kingdom. Father, may our veterans find honor and recognition deserved. Show us better ways in our communities, churches, and families to thank and love them better. And John 15:13 states, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Your Son laid down his life for each one of us, and you know us by name. You loved us when we were enemies, and all you want from us is to have a relationship with you. In John 1:12, but to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. And I would ask all here to pray this with me. I confess that Jesus is Lord, raised from the dead. Please forgive me my sins, and I want you to be Lord of my life. Amen. If we could rise and, I guess, pick one of the flags. And why don't we pick the flag over here to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll have a song of Brant is involved.
A few moments ago, I placed a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And as I stepped back and stood during the moment of silence that followed, I said a small prayer. And it occurred to me that each of my predecessors has had a similar moment, and I wondered if our prayers weren't very much the same, if not identical. We celebrate Veterans Day on the anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice that began on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And I wonder, in fact, if all Americans' prayers aren't the same as those I mentioned a moment ago. For all we can ever do for our heroes is remember them and remember what they did. And memories are transmitted through words. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, gray and gray-haired. But most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country. cemetery, leave a flag or a flower or a little rock on a headstone. And they stop and bow their heads and communicate what they wished to communicate. I think sometimes of General Matthew Ridgway, who the night before D-Day tossed sleepless on his cot and talked to the Lord and listened for the promise that God made to Joshua. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. We're surrounded today by the debt of our wars. We owe them a debt we can never repay. All we can do is remember them, what they did, and why they had to be brave for us. All we can do is try to see that other young men never have to join. Today as never before, we must pledge to remember the things that will continue the peace. Today as never before, we must pray for God's help in broadening and deepening the peace we enjoy. Let us pray for freedom and justice and a more stable world. And let us make a compact today with the dead. A promise in the words for which General Ridgway listened. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee.
I will not fail thee or forsake thee. Those are words that we live by every day because it's a continual fight for veterans to keep benefits that we have. But most Americans, of course, and everybody here, I'm sure, you truly love our veterans. And especially at gatherings like this on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And while their feelings are usually sincere, it's important to remember that veterans are defending us out there 365 days a year. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and time again by veterans for the American way of life, global terrorism, Vietnam, Korea, and a lot of it's unnoticed by us, who enjoy the security that their sacrifices provided, our freedoms. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from their families, miss the births of their children, freeze in sub-zero temperature, bake in wild jungles like I did, lose limbs and far too often lose their lives, and I've seen a lot of guys lose their lives. I was in a battle in Dak To in November of 1967, and those memories still haunt me today. Right after that was the Tet Offensive in end of January and February of '68. And those memories do not go away. Military spouses, they've had to endure career interruptions because there's frequent changes of addresses. They have to move, go someplace else. They might be at Fort Polk one day and Fort Blitz the next. The children often have to deal with changes in schools, separation from friends, and hardest of all, the uncertainty of whether or not mom and dad will live through their next combat tour. How do you think about that? So the whole family's involved, not just the veteran. Warriors need advocates. And of course, the American Legion, the DAV, Vietnam Veterans of America, the VFW, Combat Veterans Association, all these other associations, Vietnam Veterans of America, they are there to help serve the families of our veterans. And veterans need each other. But more importantly, More importantly, our country needs our veterans. Now, I'm going through this speech, and I'm the public relations director of the American Legion, and I wrote this speech for a speech that wasn't given by the national commander because of the COVID. So he gave it on television, and I wrote it for him. But you cannot fight a war without veterans, and while the utopian idea of a society without war is appealing, let us not forget that wars have liberated slaves, stopped genocide, and toppled terrorists. Now, there's a guy named Stephen Ambrose, and he once wrote that America's wars have been like rungs on a ladder by which it rose to greatness. No other country has triumphed so long, so consistently, or on such a vast scale through force of arms. It has been often said that without our veterans, Americans would be speaking Russian, German, or perhaps Japanese. Regardless of which view of alternative history you take, we know that without our veterans, America would not be America. And as we look at the Middle East today, we know that there is a large, dangerous, and committed group of fanatics. They all want us dead, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, you name it. They're continually looking at us and wanting us dead because they don't like our way of life. We fought against the Nazi Germany, we fought against Imperial Japan. Those who defend us from our enemies must be supported. And sometimes, when things change in this country, the ideology may change, and those that defend us will not be supported. Whether their service was in Baghdad or Beirut, we need to serve veterans as well as they serve us, even when the guns have temporarily stopped firing. Now, I'm with the American Legion, Public Relations Director. The American Legion shows its support for America's heroes through things like Family Support Network, the Legacy Foundation, Operation Comfort Warriors. We offer temporary financial assistance to veterans when they need it. And there's a national emergency fund. You ever hear about when there's a tornado somewhere, you'll see the American Legion is there helping them out. So when people ask you about these groups, you'll know what to tell them next time. Veterans are always out there helping the community. Veterans, we don't ask for much. They do not want to be in a special class, but benefits are a mere drop in the bucket compared to the financial and human cost of war. And while not all veterans see war, all who served in the military have expressed a willingness to fight if called to. And that's the important thing, if called to. So they sign a blank check payable for their life. Now, if any of you want to show your support for these great men and women by hiring a veteran, if you own a business, hire a veteran, visit a VA hospital, donate to veterans programs, that's one way of showing your support. And of course, some of the biggest things that are happening now with the veterans today is, of course, homelessness. And that's another issue that affects veterans disproportionately. Most of you may not know that we just developed a 75 permanent housing homeless veteran shelter behind Best Buy in Hobart, Indiana. And if anybody's from Hobart, thank you. It took us 3 years to get this off the ground, and it cost us $15 million of VASH vouchers, which today now, it took us, because of COVID and veterans, it took us less than 30 days to get applications to fill it. It'll be filled by the end of this month. We may have to build another one because there's still a lot of homeless veterans out there, and we're going to help them. And of course, suicide's another one. 20 per day. 20 veterans per day are killing themselves. You might want to ask the question of why. Well, we had a veteran call the show, and this happened about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and he had a gun and he threatened to kill himself on the air. Well, naturally, we definitely tried to talk him out of it. We kept him on the air. We didn't take any calls. We kept him on. And we found out where he was calling from. And we didn't, right away say, okay, we need the police there or anything, because we were afraid he might shoot himself. One of the people on the show at the time, he was a city councilman, and we were able to get a hold of the chief of police through the phones in the production department, and we were able to make sure that they didn't go running up to the house while we were talking to him on the radio. Now, when this happened, I talked to him. He was a combat vet like me. And at the time, I was the only combat vet on the show in the radio station that day. And I talked to him for an hour, and he was in bad shape, but I convinced him to turn himself in, not to the police. We got a social worker out there, because this guy didn't need to go to jail. He needed somebody to help him. He had problems, and we were able to get these people, and he's helped today. And now he's a dentist in Denver, Colorado. Went back to school and became a dentist. And he was going to kill himself. Historians have said that Dwight Eisenhower was prouder of being a soldier than he was of being the president. And while relatively few veterans ever reached the rank of general, pride is something that we all have for our units. It's a bond shared by nearly all who have served. We're proud of our units and what we've done. And of course, if you read any obituary, what are you going to see in it? It's going to tell you where his military service was, regardless of how many decades have passed. It's always going to mention that this man has served his country and that he is a veteran. Now, can any chief executive officer or distinguished Ivy League graduate claim to have more responsibility than a 21-year-old squad leader walking point on patrol in Afghanistan or in Vietnam or Korea or in Europe during World War II, where his men will get killed if he doesn't make the right decision on point, if he misses something or doesn't see something or doesn't hear something? In the jungle, you depended a lot on your hearing because there was so much thickness that the hearing, not the eyes, came into play more than your eyesight. So you have to be very, very, very careful in combat situations. Fewer than 10% of Americans can claim the title veteran. Fewer than 10%. Far less than 1% of our population is currently defending us in the global war on terrorism, and yet many seem intent on trying to balance the federal budget by diminishing the quality of life programs designed for the families who have already disproportionately made these sacrifices. And we're not going to have it. We're not going to stand for it. And we're going to continue to fight to make sure that veterans keep their benefits. And we're fighting for the spouses of those veterans. There's a lot of work still being done. I just received word about a week ago that the Mission Act that was passed by President Donald Trump is now faltering. They are calling back people that have been on the Mission Act. That means you can go see a private doctor outside the VA. If the VA cannot provide you with the treatment that you need, now they're starting to call these people back and saying, well, we're going to treat you now. One example is ketamine. Ketamine is used for PTSD, and I guess they called some people back and said, we're going to start treating you with the ketamine. The problem was the VA didn't give them the same dose. They gave them a less dose, and it caused these people to go off. So we're always watching what's going on. In Virginia, in a hospital, one of the veterans that was there had ants crawling all over him. One of the employees at another veterans hospital was charged with murdering a bunch of veterans. And we have to keep an eye on all this stuff, because if we don't, who will? If we don't make it better, who will? Veterans have given us their freedom, our security, and our greatest, it's the greatest nation on earth. It's impossible to put a price on what our veterans have done for us. We must remember them. We must appreciate them. And we must always go the extra step to make sure that our veterans are taken care of, respected, and honored for defending our Constitution, our way of life. Thank you very much. I'm Pat O'Donnell. May God bless you all for being here. God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
War veterans. They are those who answer the call of our country in times of peace or great conflict. They step forward, sign up, and swore the oath to defend our nation. For the next few moments, I'll call the Sergeant of the Guard to give our veterans the honor of a volley of three. Please prepare yourself for the words of responding. After the volleys, taps will be sung by our bugler. The sounding taps are heard in all military installations at the retirement of our flag at sunset. It also symbolizes the end of a soldier's day and lights out. These 24 notes are also sung at graveside to honor a veteran and let them know their duty is done. They rest in peace. At the sounding taps and the command of his arms by the Sergeant of the Guard, we ask them all veterans to salute. Everyone else, please place your right hand over your heart. The command to end the salute is order arms. Sergeant of the Guard, give our veteran the honor of a volley of three. At this time, we ask that all are physically able to stand and ready to go to God.
One song, some of you might have heard this before. It's my veteran tribute song to my dad, Mr. Larry Wright. And like Paul was saying, earlier, we don't always get to hear firsthand the stories. But sometimes we hear them, I guess you would say, secondhand.
They say he never knew his dad, losed himself and his life was rocky. He grew up on the rougher side of town. He had some kids and many wives, tougher than nails from a trucker's life. I guess the highway was his only high. But he looked down and his eyes were water, told a story of another day and time that I don't understand. Now he's best friends with my old man, and they would talk about it every now and then. They're fallen brothers from Vietnam. And those 13 stripes and 50 stars flying high over the bar. And I heard the stories they recall, and I've seen the toughest men cry down at the Legion Hall. Now buried on the shelf was an old handbook. It showed the ranks and the things it took to be a Marine back in '42. Grandpa took that book right out of Dad's hands. It's the last war you don't understand, but little did he know the next stop was Vietnam. Now those 13 stripes and 50 stars are flying high over the bar, and I've heard the stories that they recall, and I've seen the toughest men cry down at the Legion Hall. Now the lady next to us, she's ordering rounds. We all pitch in and throw one down. She just got word her son is coming home, and that flag will fly half-staff in the morning. And those 13 stripes and 50 stars, they're flying high over the bar, and he is the eagle above us all, and we pray the silence down at the Legion Hall. Down at the Legion Hall.
So this concludes the Veterans Day program. Again, thank you to each veteran here, combat or non-combat, who has served. I would encourage you throughout the rest of the year and just in your daily walks and when you're at restaurants, if you see someone and you know they're a veteran, if they have a hat on, just say thank you for their service. Lots of us can be political on lots of things, but most of them, you know, a lot of them didn't ask to go. Some just want to serve and protect this country. So God bless America, and again, thank you guys for coming today.